Today we are going to be talking about a classic, Wicca, A Guide for the Solitary Practitioner by Scott Cunningham. My copy is well used and well loved. This is the first witchy book that I ever bought. And so this book a lot of people have talked about. So most people have probably come across this, but the basics of this book is it is a beginner book for Wicca. Now the thing is, with Scott Cunningham, he was one of the first, if not the first, to really push the idea of self-initiation. You didn't need to belong to a coven to be initiated. You didn't have to go find a coven somewhere, go through their training to use the label of Wiccan. You could do it yourself, and his argument is, who initiated the first witch? Who was the first one? Because really, these covens were all invented by somebody at some point, and this book kind of was the first really to promote that from what I've found so far. A lot of the other books have kind of poked at it and not using names, whether it's the book title or his name, have dissed on the concept over the years as we've gone through a variety of books, that it's kind of how dare you have such a title to say that you are a Wiccan but you haven't been initiated. He was the first to kind of argue against it, again from what I've found so far, and he's usually labeled as that. So this book is pretty much what it talks about. It is a guide. It tells you a lot of the basics of Wicca. It's not necessarily the greatest book to just use on its own. If you're trying to do a year and a day, this is definitely not your only resource you want. But I do think it's one that you should read, whether it's for the historical side of things, because again, this is top tier. Pretty much everyone at some point has read this book. There's a few that you kind of stumble across and you read it. Spiral Dance, Buckland's Big Blue Book, Silver Ravenwolf, Scott Cunningham. There is just a handful that have survived the ages, many generations. I mean, he died 30 years ago this year. So it's been a while since this book came out in the 90s. And so naturally, this is it's a historical book for that, but not a lot of it is dated. There's some things, and it's mostly just shops and stuff that he mentions, and how to go about things like that, where it's it's changed a little bit in 30 years in the digital age. Other than that though, and a little bit of the terminology has changed a bit. Now witchcraft and witch has kind of taken on its own life outside of Wicca. Other than that though, which again, 30 plus years ago that this was published, most of this is pretty much the same. The basics are there, the premise is still just as solid as it was all those years ago, and it's one of those that I still find myself going back to time and time and time again. Now, is it the most helpful resource? Probably not. Again, I am a little biased. I really love this book because it was the first one that I ever grabbed, and it's a good resource. I love the way he presents the information. It's very approachable in how he presents witchcraft and Wicca, that it isn't this big scary thing. You don't have to be initiated and prove yourself to a coven. You don't have to be stripped down naked and have a sword pointed at you and blindfolded and be told that you're joining us, which sounds so cult-like. His variation of an initiation is you go out into the woods and you find some rocks and some river or something, and you light some candles and some incense and you just sit and chit-chat with the gods. Way more my speed. That said, the information in here, the back of the book, is a book of shadows of sorts, and I did find that it's interesting that this book of shadows in the back of this, compared to the one that I reviewed last year, which is Cunningham's Book of Shadows, that book felt very traditional Wicca. This did not, and I think honestly, because they said that the other one they had found various manuscripts, and it was, I think, probably from a different time in his life, in his craft, because this feels way more of the Scott Cunningham vibe that we know and love, where it's very solitary and it's very easy and accessible. The other one was very traditional Wicca. And so the Book of Shadows example at the back of this book, it's very good as a starting point. And it is very bare bones, honestly, but I feel like that's okay. It gives you an idea. And there's so much information that you're going to gather over the years that to have a baseline isn't bad. And honestly, the rituals and stuff are very simple, pretty easy to do. And again, it's not my style, but I do appreciate it for the fact that I have gone back time and time again and been what can I glean from this? And pretty much anytime I've gone through this book, there's always something that stands out a little differently. And this particular time I did notice that some of his things of like how to get started really are common. And actually when you start to do that, you'll find that typically most witches years later still do this stuff. Meditate, focus on controlling your breathing, have some altar time, and like just, you know, affirmations, stuff like that. Like very basic things that we all do. Practice your visualizations. Like it felt like a very summarized edition of the entire year of the Inner Temple of Witchcraft. And a lot of books talk about it. I just feel like Inner Temple really expanded the concept and really made you go into it a lot and made it last for a full year. And it was really important, and I do think you should go through that book. But this is one of those like supplemental readings that you should probably do alongside it. Again, overall, I love this book. I have fond memories going through this. I've had covens that I've tried to join over the years. This is a required reading. Like, it's just one of those books that has just circulated for so long. Everyone has a copy of this book, it seems like. And there's a reason that it's still prominent all these years later. There are so many books that will come and go, and it's really hard in a very niche community to maintain your name 30 years after you die, but Scott Cunningham has done that. This book, so many beginners are still told, go grab this book. And it's well worth it. I think the writing is just the pinnacle of Scott Cunningham. And it's just one of those books that, like, even if you're experienced going through it, for me, again, because it is my first witchy book, really, that I bought. I read one before it from the library, which eventually I will buy for the simple fact that it was my first witchy book. But this is just, it has so many fond memories. I don't identify as Wiccan anymore, so a lot of the concepts don't apply. The whole concept of the goddess and the god, how the universe is, all of that stuff, it doesn't work for me. But it's just one of those resources that, reading through it again, it's just a little bit of a reminder of where we came from and where my path started. Hi, please don't knock over the camera. Hi, 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 please no, please no, please no. Please don't knock over the camera. So anyways, my dog is trying to come bug me on the other side of the camera here, so we're gonna end this kind of short, and I will talk to you guys next time. I would love to hear what your first witchy books were, whether you bought them or you got them from the library, or you borrowed them from a friend or whatever. But what were your favorite books? What was your first one that you started with? What were your impressions of this book in the comments down below? Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be. This is the little fluff butt. This is where the camera was. She's demanding attention. She keeps wanting to go for a walk, but when I go to try and put her harness on, she says no and walks away. And I'm not going to beg her to want to go. It's her choice. So she just walks away and then we don't go, and then she keeps coming back, but Mama, I still wanna go. Yeah, she's been needy all day. So anyways, this is the fluff butt. You can't really see her very well. She's like kind of trapped up in this corner here, wanting all the attentions. But yeah, anyways, there's my doggo. There you go, maybe you can see her. Hey, what you doing? Should we try and go for a walk? See, she wants to. Do you want to go for a walk? Yeah? Do you want us to? Should we try it again? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Yeah. See, look at that beautiful face. Isn't she so cute?